And in the visitors area or in the legislative side? I'd have you here. I've been there before and after the renovation and putting in the huge visitor center. I mean, that's just an incredible space. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Well, as you can see, we're still cleaning up from Cinco de Mayo. We had a mariachi band and decorations and all the fun stuff today. When the Capitol building was built, the intention was to use materials from the state of Colorado as much as possible. You wanted to show off the resources of the state of Colorado and also wanted to keep as much money from building the Capitol inside the state of Colorado as you could. So the vast majority of materials used in the building did come from Colorado. The gray stone on the outside of the building is granite from the town of Gunnison, about 4 hours or so up into the mountains. Most, not all, but most of the white marble floors in the Capitol building come from the town of Marble, Colorado, which is near Aspen, up in the mountains. The same stone from the same quarry was used for the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington National Cemetery, hundreds of buildings around the country, even around the world, that were built out of the same white marble that we use for at least most of the Capitol floors. From Denver, there's a lot of materials that were produced here locally. All of the walls are brick made here in Denver and then plastered over. From Denver came all of the light fixtures in the Capitol building, all made of brass. Also from Denver, we have 122 pillars, all made out of cast iron that wrap around the beams that hold up the State House. But the most famous material in the building from Colorado is the red stone that we've used for wainscot throughout the Capitol. This is called rose onyx, or Beulah marble. It comes from the town of Beulah, Colorado, near Pueblo, to the south of Denver. The famous thing about rose onyx is that the Colorado State Capitol is the only place in the world you're ever going to find it. There were a couple of little outcroppings of the stone discovered near Beulah, and every usable piece was dug up. If you visit the site today, there's a couple of holes with some rose onyx crumbs at the bottom. And other than that, every usable piece of rose onyx is here in the Capitol building. Excuse me. Monday morning. To decorate the Capitol, we did have to go outside the state of Colorado. All of the woodwork, for example, is white oak from the Ozark Mountains of Missouri and Arkansas. Not a lot of hardwood sources in the state of Colorado, so I had to go outside for those. And some of the decorative brass, the bottoms of the pillars, railings throughout the Capitol, came from foundries in Ohio, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. Although other than that, pretty much everything in the Capitol building's construction did come from the state of Colorado. Now here in the West Wing, we have some of our former governor's portrait collection, and a lot more portraits than we had up until only about 15 years ago. At that point, we had our most recent governor's portraits and none of the older ones. Nobody had any idea where the older portraits were. And we were doing a restoration project in the basement of our State Archives building, about a block to the south of the Capitol, taking down walls, rearranging the basements and everything. And as we took down the walls, there were these giant burlap-wrapped parcels inside the walls, and opened up the burlap, and where all these governors are staring back at us. Very creepy, Edgar Allan Poe sort of stuff. We're going to seal the governors in the walls, not tell anybody about it. I don't know. So the portraits have been restored and rehung in the order in which the governors served in office. We do not have a complete collection. We have about 2/3 of the governor's portraits here in the Capitol building. A couple of them are over at the State Historical Society. Many we still don't know exactly where they are. We've checked behind other walls and everything too, not quite sure. But the oldest one on display is up here in the top center of one of our territorial governors, Alexander Cummings. And the portrait's going to wander their way through the first floor. We'll see them in a couple of different places. Over here to our most recent former governor, that's John Hickenlooper, who left office in 2019, and he's now United States Senator Hickenlooper in Washington, D.C. Questions while we're here? Anybody want to sneak over and grab some leftovers, you're welcome to do that too. So, all right, let's head over toward the south wing. I'm not going to tell anybody. The Colorado State Capitol was designed by an architect named Elijah Myers, whose name doesn't really resonate today, but he was a prolific nationwide architect in the late 1800s. He designed over 300 public buildings across the country: courthouses, city halls, post offices, high schools, churches, hospitals, you name it. He designed, I should mention, the Richmond City Hall, the neo-Gothic building across the street from the the Virginia State Capitol. He designed 3 state capitol buildings that still stand today. The first was in Lansing, Michigan. The second in Austin, Texas. And once he figured out how to do it correctly, he came out to Colorado and designed ours here. This was produced by his office to give us a sense of what the building was going to look like once it was completed. It was nice to have this around because it did take 15 years to complete our Capitol. The construction started in 1886 and continued until about 1901, when, for all intents and purposes, the building was, let's put it, as finished as it was going to be. Kind of, instead of having a big, exciting grave. Someone can see the story that when the Michigan Capitol was under construction, Myers would visit the site, and big, noisy, exciting, lots of kids would gather around just to watch the work going on. And Myers would keep peppermints in his pocket to hand out to the kids. For those of us who've studied Elijah Myers, this is the only redeeming story any of us have ever found of just a, you wouldn't want to get stuck in an elevator with this guy. Not the most pleasant of person, but he designed nice buildings. So we'll cut him some slack. Let's head over to the side. Right this way.
I heard you are from Richmond?
I am.
Virginia?
Yes.
I'm from Richmond as well.
Oh, you're from Richmond as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm Richmond too.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
It's in Richmond. Richmond, Virginia, right?
Yes. And what do you do in Richmond?
I work for the U.S. government, so I remotely work from Richmond.
Ah, okay.
So my
I
family,
mentioned at
I
the
work for
beginning
Department
of
of
the tour that
Taxation.
the Capitol was designed to house all of Colorado's government when the building was designed in the late 1880s. And indeed, in the middle of the 1890s, when the building opened, every single person who worked for Colorado's state government worked in this building. We housed the offices of the governor, lieutenant governor, state treasurer, secretary of state, state auditor, attorney general, our legislative chambers, state supreme court, court of appeals, the state superintendent of public instruction, the railroad commission, the mining commission, the land commission, the state engineer, the state geologist, the historical society, the horticulturalist, everybody was here in the Capitol. And in the late 1800s, you could do that. But as the years go by and life gets more complicated, the size of state government has grown. The Capitol now houses 3 of our 5 statewide elected officials: the governor, lieutenant governor, and state treasurer, as well as our legislature meeting up on the 2nd floor. These open doors here lead into the governor's reception room. Anybody who has an appointment with the governor would check in there and then go back to the governor's private office. The governor of Colorado is Jared Polis. He's a Democrat, elected in 2018 and then re-elected in 2022. 2026, just next year, is going to be a big political year for Colorado because all 5 of our statewide elected officials are term limited, which means everybody's going to be new into all of these offices coming in next year. But 2026 is big for another reason in Colorado. That's because it's our sesquicentennial, which is a fancy way of saying Colorado's 150th birthday. Colorado joined the Union in 1876, which is how we got our nickname of the Centennial State. Centennial meaning 100 years. Colorado joined the Union 100 years after the United States declared independence in 1776. Making Colorado's statehood connected with that 100th anniversary was probably a fun idea back in 1876, but it's been kind of a hassle ever since, because every time we have a big birthday, the United States has a bigger birthday and nobody pays attention to us. So a couple of years ago, the legislature set up a commission to plan all sorts of ceremonies, commemorations. There's all sorts of work being done to honor Colorado's 150th birthday next year. I mention this so that while you're watching the fireworks on TV next summer for the nation's 250th birthday, this is your excuse for an extra piece of cake to celebrate Colorado's birthday too. Extra pastry is always important. Let's gather around the railing here for just a second. We have 2 seemingly random holes in the floor of the Colorado State Capitol, one here in the south wing and one over in the north wing where the tour started. These holes were not supposed to be here in the original plans that Elijah Myers produced. In fact, where we're standing when the building opened up, this was the staircases leading up to the Capitol's upper floors. They started there on the second floor, came down to where you guys are standing on the first, from the first floor down to the basement and so on. Shortly before the building was completed, the powers that be thought that it would be a fun idea to rip out everything we'd already finished and put one big fancy staircase in the rotunda. We'll see that in just a few minutes. But that left these two holes in the first floor, south wing and north wing. But it was nice, it let some natural light down into the basement, pretty dark and dank down there before these holes were here. So it just rounded them off with some decorative railings. If you look down to the basement floor today, well, it's not the most impressive view you'll see on the tour, but it would be a very different view if we were standing here in 1909, thanks to my absolute favorite Capitol employee of all time, a woman by the name of Martha Shute. For 16 years, Martha Shute was the secretary of the State Board of Horticulture. So it's her job to encourage Coloradans to plant fruits and vegetables, that sort of thing, and to prove that we can grow anything anywhere in Colorado. In 1909, Martha Shute set 24 glass jars down there on the basement floor and put in saplings from western Colorado. Pear trees, peach, apple, cherry, apricot, to get some natural light from the skylight and grow a fruit crop inside the Capitol building. I know it happened. There's pictures of it in the newspapers from 1909. I can't imagine it was the most successful crop we've ever raised in Colorado, but more than anything, I desperately want to know how I get a new orchard in the basement, because that would be fantastic. Oh yeah, absolutely, brighten it up a little. Any questions while we're here in the South? All right, let's continue over in the East Wing right this way. There's actually yellow insides racks. They do like brass instruments, trumpets and trombones and things. On the buildings, it's right this way. When you visit a place like the state capitol, you think old, you think historic, and well, that's certainly true. But we've tried to keep up with the times as far as technology is concerned, and I'll tell two stories connected to that. The first comes from 1886, the year that construction began on the Capitol. That year was also the year that electricity was introduced to Denver. And so the building, by the time we got around to the electrical part of it, about 10 years later, the whole building was wired, well, essentially be powered by two sources of energy, by electricity and by carbide gas. If you notice, for example, the chandelier here in the East Wing, you've got the light bulbs pointing downward, and then above the light bulbs, there's this little swoop up to a point with a valve on it. That was from the old gas light system that we had in the Capitol. And we used gas in the Capitol building until the 1910s, by which time we've had several explosions in the Capitol. People seriously injured with pillars blowing open or people leaving the valve on in the vault in their office, coming in Monday morning to light the match and losing their eyebrows. After that happened a few times, we decided, this electricity thing seems to be doing very well and not blowing anyone up, so all the gas system was turned off. A bit more recently in our technology story, in 2012, the Colorado State Capitol became the first state house in the country to receive a LEED certification for energy use. That was the year that we introduced our geothermal system to the Capitol. There's two 900-foot deep wells over on the east side of the building. We bring water naturally heated from under the surface of the earth up one of the wells, take the heat off, send the water down the other well, and then the heat cycles through the radiators throughout the building. All these big brass covers work for that. There's the one challenge with our geothermal system, there's no heating temperature control. It's either off or as hot as the blazing inferno under the surface of the earth. So usually when we turn on the when we turn on the heating system, We turn it on at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, turn it off at 6 o'clock, and then the ambient heat just lasts through the day. If you're in the building at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can bake cookies in here. It is so toasty. I mentioned earlier Colorado's nicknamed the Centennial State from our 100th anniversary of joining the Union after independence. Centennial's a big deal for Colorado, but centennials aren't always the most celebrated ones, the most always optimistic, upbeat stories. And that gives me a chance to talk about this guy right here, the smaller of the two portraits, the one on the bottom. This is Clarence Morley. He's best known as Colorado's Klan governor. In the 1920s, Governor Morley was elected in 1924. He took office 100 years ago this year in 1925. And as a member of the Klan, a very powerful organization in Colorado in the 1920s, Morley used state power to try to restrict the rights of people by race, by ethnicity, by religion. There was a special telephone line set up between Governor Morley's office and the Grand Dragons headquarters down on 16th Street in downtown Denver to receive daily instructions about who gets hired, who gets fired. For 2 years, Colorado was essentially run by the Ku Klux Klan, 1925, 1926. The governor's office and the State House of Representatives both had Klan control. The only thing that slowed down the Klan was the state Senate. There were enough anti-Klan members in the Senate to essentially block almost everything that the Klan was trying to push through and propose. If you look at the books with all of the laws that are passed in each legislative session, when you get to 1925, it's a tiny little volume because the state Senate managed to block a lot of the proposals that the Klan was trying to push through. A reminder that centennials aren't always, the celebratory ones here in Colorado. I mentioned over in the West Wing that the governor's portraits, we lost so many of them, including Governor Morley's portrait. His was one of those that we found wrapped in burlap stuck behind the wall. And when we rediscovered the portraits, cleaned them up, there was a big debate. Does he go back up on the wall? Certainly the least respected governor in Colorado history, the only one, at least thus far, served time in federal prison after he left office. Hopefully the only one we'll have from that. Ultimately, the decision we made, and I'm very grateful for that, is hiding his portrait in the basement said something worse. And so hanging him here and confronting that unpleasantness, I think, gives us a bit more historical vitality and the ability to face our demons. So, questions while we're here in the East Wing?
So when you say Klan, is it KKK?
The Ku Klux
Oh,
Klan.
Ku Klux Klan, okay. That's...
Alrighty, well, let's head over into the rotunda. This way. To look in the House, look for the guys in the green blazers. Senate is the maroon; those are the sergeants, and they'll take care of it. Now, the central room of the Capitol building is called the Rotunda, directly underneath the dome. Here on the first floor of the Rotunda, we have a series of murals that were installed in 1940. These are called the water murals. They were done by an artist named Alan True, and they depict ways in which water has been used in Colorado over the span of its history. Colorado is what's known as a semi-arid state, which means that we're not quite a desert, but we're not too far away from being in a desert either, so careful management and conservation of water is essential for survival in the state of Colorado. And the water murals here in the Rotunda are a good reminder of that. The grand staircase here in the center of the Capitol building was the last major addition to the Capitol. As I mentioned, tearing out the old staircases, putting in this new one at the end of the 1890s. But building the grand staircase really exposed the fundamental challenge of building the Capitol, and that was the dedication to using Colorado materials. All of the quarries that we used for the Capitol had never been used before this project. So they weren't developed. They didn't really have the infrastructure ready to remove the stone and move it to the capital city. For example, the white marble floors in the Capitol, to get the flooring, we had to take chunks of marble out by hand, lash it to a team of horses, and drag it 40 miles to the nearest railroad line. Then the trains took this meandering, circuitous journey through the mountains finally to get to Denver. It took so much time and cost so much money to get this stone to the Capitol building site that as the years went by, state officials decided we just need to finish the project, and so they allowed what they called foreign marble to be introduced into the Capitol building from places as exotic as Tennessee and Vermont. By the time we get to the grand staircase, the white marble treads here, these are not Colorado, this is not Colorado stone, it's not Vermont or Tennessee stone either. The white marble treads are what's called Carrara marble, from the quarries of Italy that Michelangelo used during the Renaissance that the Roman Empire was using 2,000 years ago. Up at the landing of the grand staircase, where those folks are right now on the wall, there's different orange-colored stones on the panels there. That's called Lamartine marble. It's from the French Alps and was used in places like Versailles, the Louvre Museum in Paris. It was cheaper in the 1890s to get stone quarried in France and Italy, put on a boat to New York, and then a train to Denver than it was to get the stone from 100 miles away from Denver up in the Colorado Rockies. So the next time a politician tells you that infrastructure is important, infrastructure is important. It's the reason it took us 3 times as long and cost 3 times as much to build the Capitol as we intended it to. Questions while we're here on the first floor?
The thing is like yeah, go ahead.
Well,
No.
Is the marble from Italy the same marble used in the Hagia Sophia?
you know, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised because it's a very common source of stone that was used. The Hagia Sophia being built by the kind of late days of the Roman Empire, it would not surprise me.
So if the marble wear and tears, like do they get the marble from Italy or they replace with something else?
If we need
If it get damaged at some point.
we've actually, and they're very clever. The question was, how do you repair it if the stone comes from Italy and so on? It's kind of, the intention is for you not to be able to see it. There's little patches and nicks that we've lost out of the stone here that state officials have gotten really good at hiding and masking just with composites and chemicals and things like that now. So they're very clever, they're sneaky that way. Any other questions while we're here? All right, let's head up to the second floor. Right this way. What's your session time? Special sessions called the past 2 years to deal with the same property tax issue we haven't been handling apparently.
But we've had to have a budget. They've had to come back.
That's well, and when they have to do that, and everybody's, oh, how much is the special session costing, and so on, all the PR that goes on.
So are you part of the Virginia legislature? You are, because we have
See how
elections
loud I
this
can
year.
holler?
Yes.
So
We
we
have
will be having a new
33
governor
stained glass
next year.
windows throughout the Capitol building, although I think Emily Griffith gets the best view of everybody. Emily Griffith was a school teacher in Denver about 100 years ago and came up with the idea for what she called an opportunity school. Not so much, reading and writing and math, but the idea of a school where people could learn a skill. You want to be able to support yourself better, teaching yourself how to be a carpenter, a mechanic, an electrician, a plumber, whatever. What we would think of as a vocational school today. She opened her opportunity school in 1916. It remains in operation here in Denver. It's now called the Emily Griffith Technical College, and it's run by Denver Public Schools. Any questions while we're here on the second floor?
This is for high schoolers or after high school?
High school and kind of early college age as well, but when that's primarily who it serves today. When Emily Griffith opened it, if you were 65 years old and wanted to learn a new skill, more than welcome to walk in the front door. Our legislative chambers are here on the second floor, although we're not going to be going into the galleries. You're welcome to do that after the tour. You can pop in the Senate chamber over on the south wing, the House chamber over the west wing. The reason we're not going to go into galleries during the tour is that, well, the legislature is still in session, and for some reason they think that their work is more interesting than whatever I would have to say up in the galleries. Very rude looks from the legislators when I'm talking up there. So you're welcome to pop into the galleries and watch the legislature in session. We are teetering on the brink of the end of our first regular session of the 75th General Assembly. Our legislature convenes in early January and meets for 120 calendar days every year. Wednesday at midnight is what's known as sine die, which means not another day. The legislature has to adjourn by midnight on Wednesday of this week. Whatever bills they haven't gotten to, that's too bad. You'll have to wait until the next legislative session. We've introduced, at last count, a little over 650 bills in this session. More than half have already failed, have not made it through their committees or whatever. The governor's signed a couple, he's vetoed a couple. Nonetheless, this is kind of the crackling atmosphere. Everybody's getting ready to wrap things up, including Chris, who needs to clean up the mess over here. How did Chris Mary do? You're fine. Any questions before we head up to the third floor?
The governor has 30 days from Wednesday at midnight
to sign or veto. Yeah, exactly. And so there'll be ceremonies in the governor's office for the next couple of weeks as other things are signed. We got bagels up over there. That's how you pronounce it there. My guess is everybody's got their own Latin version there. Any other questions while we're here?
This is free. 50 bucks. I charge for air conditioning. Yeah, you can get it.
Oh, how many members of the legislature?
No, you can have it.
You
can have it.
5 state senators, so 100 legislators total.
You want some?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you.
Technically second. I'll tell you, I'll tell the complicated story here in just a few minutes because I got that. So as I mentioned, our legislature is currently in session, wrapping up their first session of the 75th General Assembly. We're on day 118 out of 120. And yeah, come on, got a seat right up here in front. I took a shower this morning just for this occasion, no worries. When our legislature is in session, the House and the Senate chambers, of course, in use as well. Up here on the third floor, we're in the Senate committee rooms. As usually the way I explain it with the fourth grade groups, when you're in a classroom, sometimes you're working as a whole class, sometimes you're working in small groups. The legislature does the same sort of thing. Whenever a bill is introduced, it's assigned to a committee. Senate committees meeting up here on the third floor. There's a similar space down in the basement for the House committees. And they'll work out the details of the bill. If enough people like it, goes back to the floor of the House or the Senate. It has to pass both chambers, of course, before it gets down to the governor's office to either be signed or vetoed. We've had only two vetoes thus far this session. The legislature teetered on the brink of trying to overturn the two vetoes last week and decided against it for whatever reason. So we've been navigating some drama there. The session this year has been comparatively drama-free. Last weekend on Saturday, the legislature was in session. Rarely on a weekend do they come into session, but we get closer to the end, it's one of those, we've got a few things we need to finish up and not much time to do it in. It's better than it was 2 years ago. We had some sessions that would start at 9 o'clock in the morning and ended at about 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning. And if the legislature's in session, then all the staff has to be here, all the security has to be here, the building has to be open. Colorado has what's known as a sunshine law, which means that any meeting of members of the legislature has to be done in public. People can see what the decisions that are being made are taking place. Sadly, the tour desk doesn't have to be here at 2 o'clock in the morning if the legislature is. So anybody who shows up at 2 o'clock, well, you're on your own to look around. You had a question about women's suffrage in Colorado, and that's one of the stories I usually like to tell in the House of Representatives chamber. The year that the legislature met in the Capitol building for the first time, 1895, there were 3 members of the House of Representatives named Carrie Hawley, Frances Clock, and Clara Cressingham. They were the first women lawmakers elected for the state of Colorado, but more than that, they were the first women elected as lawmakers at any level of government in American history, and met here in the Capitol building the first time the legislature convened here in 1895. That was 2 years after Colorado had extended women's suffrage, equal suffrage as it was called, universal suffrage. In 1893, there was a vote of all of the male voters of Colorado who approved suffrage for women as well. Don't give them in too much credit, because in 1877 we voted on the same thing and men had voted it down 2-1. Colorado is the second state to have equal suffrage for men and women in 1893. Wyoming beat us by 3 years when they joined the Union in 1890. Their state constitution was written for universal suffrage. That's how Wyoming gets its nickname of the Equality State, the lesser of the 2 rectangles we like to call Wyoming down here. And if there were more than 3 people in Wyoming, they'd probably get mad at us, but nobody's heard it so far, so terrible, terrible things. See, as a Colorado historian, I've got to play for the home team, I really do. The legislative chambers, if you get a chance to check into the galleries before you head out of the Capitol building today, the chambers have a green hue for the House and a red hue for the Senate. The rooms look like they did when the Capitol opened in the 1890s, but they haven't looked that way the whole time. In fact, from the very beginning, our legislative chambers had terrible acoustics. The echoes were just miserable. And tried to resolve that problem in the 1950s. The walls and the ceilings of the chambers were covered with an acoustic tile glued to the wall, the ceilings, closed off the skylights and everything. And it solved the echo problem, but the rooms were ugly, turned them into two giant beige boxes. There was another problem in that up until about 2000, you could still smoke in most parts of the Capitol building. So all those tiles are absorbing the cigarette, the cigar smoke, and someone got the bright idea to make the room look less dingy by painting the tiles, which did make it more vibrant, but if you paint an acoustic tile, it's not going to absorb sound. There were poor decisions made, let's put it that way. So in 2012, we started a 3-year restoration project that removed all the tiles, restored the skylights, restored the chandeliers. So when you visit the rooms today, they look like they would have when the legislature met here at the very end of the 19th century. Questions before we move on to our last big stop? Before the biggest of all the stops, the cardiovascular stop, the hike upstairs.
Who is the most notable Coloradonian? I mean, is there a founding father or something?
The most notable Coloradan, the one who kind of leaps to mind as the biggest name from our founding generation was a man named John Rout, who was our last territorial governor, kind of the federal government oversight time, and was elected our first state governor. And his wife, Eliza Rout, was one of the leaders of the women's suffrage campaign in Colorado. So the Routs were kind of this ultimate power couple of Colorado at the end of the 1800s, politically, socially, organizing all sorts of civic events and fundraisers and so on. So I'll put the two Routs together as our kind of our king and queen, leading the way at the beginning.
Was Denver always the capital of Colorado, or
was Denver always the capital? This is going to get me in trouble. No, but for all intents and purposes, yes. Denver was the first place that government met here in Colorado. Just on a practical basis, it was the largest town when the territory was created, had the most places for people to sleep and the most food and the most booze. That was actually a big factor in lawmaking, and mercifully everyone is sober and respectable today, but less so at that time. But there was a lot of resentment toward Denver having so much prestige and wealth and influence. And so there were several times that the seat of government was moved from Denver. Once it was sent to a town called Colorado City, which is in southern Colorado. The seat of government lasted in Colorado City for 5 days before they turned around and came back to Denver. Then it was redesignated as Golden, that direction up toward the mountains where the Coors Brewery is today most famously. But again, even Golden didn't really have all the amenities that Denver did, so the capital days after days would bounce back and forth between the towns. Finally, in 1867, there was a vote of the legislature that settled Colorado as the capital. It had been the capital practically from the very beginning. Officially, it has been the capital since 1867. But go talk to the people in Golden or down in that neighborhood of Colorado Springs now, and they will tell you a very different story. But they have to toot their horns. So they've got beer. They should be just fine. I don't know why they need the capital too. Other questions while we're here? Yes?
Who gets to create or propose the bill and bring it to the committees or to say whether or not?
Great question. So who gets to propose legislation? There's about as broad an answer as you can imagine. Legislators, of course, are the ones who will introduce a bill. They'll go up to the podium at the front of the room and they'll say, I'm introducing House Bill 1712 and blah, blah, blah. But coming up with the ideas, it's usually conversations that legislators have with their neighbors, with folks on the street, people they run into at the grocery store. What are the concerns that you have? What are the things that we need as a state? And as an example of how broadly we make laws for the state of Colorado, this year, this legislative session, we have our first new state thing in over a decade, a state symbol or emblem. We added our state mushroom this year called the emperor mushroom that grows in certain parts of the Colorado high country. And the way that we designate a new state symbol or emblem, it's usually a school teacher who wants to show their students how do we make laws, and so they'll get a proposal and it'll be introduced as a bill. The kids will come testify and so on. It doesn't happen too terribly often. I was heartbroken about 10, 12 years ago. We came this close to having an official state fruit, and the legislature deadlocked between the fans of the Palisade peach and the Rocky Ford cantaloupe, and the anger and viciousness that they used in arguing about which one it should be, it was intense. And neither one was adopted. We remain state fruitless to this very day. Which really confuses me because we have two state songs for Colorado. We have Where the Columbines Grow, which is a ballad from the late 1800s, and then John Denver's Rocky Mountain High is our second state. If we have two state songs, I don't know why we can't have two state fruits, but these are the sort of things we fight about. Anywhere and everywhere the ideas come from, to be sure.
I think Georgia already claimed peach.
You know, as the peach state, but our peaches are better.
Yes.
And just ask us, we'll tell you. I tell you what, we're headed over to the entrance to the dome for your stretching of the legs, so we'll head right this way. Well, I'm going to turn you over to my friend Zoe, who's going to take you up into the attic to look at the museum space up there and look at the observation deck in the dome. As I mentioned, when you're wrapped up for the tour, be sure to come back in and check in with the galleries, the house over here, the Senate down over on the south side. But thanks so much for joining me today. I'll have a lot of fun with Zoe upstairs. Have a great one. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So we are going to head up to the dome. Sorry, I'm trying to watch my voice here over the gallery. We're about to head up to the dome. It is 99 stairs only from here to the top. If you are not able or would not like to join us up there, that is absolutely okay. You're more than welcome to sit in the House, the Senate, or watch that lovely video over there that features there some more. Once we head up, go about halfway, take a break at the attic, look around just a little bit, and then we'll regroup once fourth graders head down, and then we'll head up. So if you guys are ready, follow me. Talking about the original ballot for Colorado's granting of women's suffrage is here in this glass case. That ballot is from 1893. Colorado was the first state through popular referendum, and actually the second state at all to pass women's suffrage, second only to Wyoming. around. You're also more than welcome to explore this on your own when we are done. And if you have any questions, let me know. Kind of a few things I like to point out, but if you're scared of heights, maybe close your ears now, is this photo right here. This is a photo from when the Capitol was being constructed. The thing I think is really cool about this photo is one, you'll notice the lack of safety equipment of all kinds, including hats, helmets, and harnesses. But what's also really cool to note is that when we go up to the dome, this is where we will be standing. So when we are on the observation deck, this right here is where we'll be standing. And so once you're up in the dome, I think you can really appreciate how high they are standing without any safety equipment. So, and these windows right here, these are gonna be our Colorado Hall of Fame stained glass windows. They are the only stained glass windows, once we see them, that are original to the building. They have a lot of really important history, some kind of good, some kind of bad. And so I definitely recommend checking those out. They have plaques explaining each one once we're up there. That'll be my spiel. I'll let you guys kind of explore for a little bit, and then I'll get us regrouped before we head up. Oh no, we typically have you sign up at the desk, but if you guys want, yeah. If we're at the end though, so this is the end of the tour. But if you, the tour is free, so if you want to sign in at the desk and get the next one, it's starting in about 10 minutes. You totally can.
Good to hear you're coughing too. We're fine.
Yeah, it was
Rare
just.
advice.
I have a quick question for you. Like in 1876, when it created a state, what's the vote in the House of Representatives in US? Like in Washington D.C., how did they vote? Like, was it unanimous or was it?
That Colorado became a state?
Yeah.
I have no idea actually. I'm not sure. I've never been asked that.
Because like the Civil War ended in '68, so it's like 8 years like after the Civil War ended. So
I'm not sure.
So therefore, like whether the southern states has the chance of voting for the statehood or not. Right?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
You know.
About 10 minutes. And you want if you want to go up there, take a couple pictures and head back down right away. You can do that.
Line up behind me.
Yeah. Okay.
To my time, and I want to hit the finish.
Line up, you guys. Hey, Hair Street Butterflies. Let's remember those rules we went over at the beginning of the day. And
Really nice meeting you.
Nice to see you as well. Safe travels.
Alrighty, my 10 a.m. public tour. If you guys want to start gathering around here, we'll head up in kind of just a few minutes, a few moments, really.
Oh, that's the way to head to the dome?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have all of us kind of gather around, have a couple quick rules we're gonna go over. Hey friends, let's make sure we are listening to our tour guide Amina when she is giving us instructions. She said, friends, I know you guys remember me from outside. When Amina tells us to line up behind her, we are listening to her, okay? She is your tour guide and she's in charge, all right?
Yes, thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Zoe. Alrighty, 10 a.m. tour. We are gonna head up. A couple quick rules, especially for my kiddos. We're gonna walk, use the hand railings. When we get up to the top, the outside observation deck is open. When we are walking around the inside, you're also more than welcome to walk around on the inside. On the inside, you'll see a set of brass railings. Please do not stick any phones, electronics through the railings. We just don't want anything falling on anyone below. I also have to say this, otherwise it will happen. Please do not stick your head, your arms, or your legs through the railings. It sounds silly, but it happens. And then we'll be up there for about 10 minutes, take some photos, and then head back down.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll let you guys go first, and I'll just shut this door behind us.
Just take the stairs. You made it.
I'm not a huge fan push it down.
Oh, you want me to take your picture of you?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Would you like me to do the same? Ooh, I think I better hold on.
You want that spiral there?
Thank you. Would you like me to do it as well?
No.
Oh, I'm not letting this blow away this way. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you want me to take a picture of we together?
Yeah, sure, that'll be great.
Yeah, you're good.
We'll take a picture of you right after.
You want the flags to be in part of it?
It's
Go ahead, check. If you need to retake them, I'll take them. They're fine?
Yeah, do you want us to take a picture?
No. I'm fine. Are you a Coloradarian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
well,
you-
now. Yeah.
So you should know in school, right? They teach you about all that history.
Yeah.
Yes, the city, state. And they're in, I don't know how it works in other places, but in the United States, there's, I think, you get the number wrong, and someone probably knows in the park. I believe it's about 7, 8, or 9 around, I think, mints scattered in the United States. So not every state has one, but we're not the only states to have one.
Is that the city hall?
Yeah, so City Hall is going to be right in front with those columns.
Like a Supreme Court is not in this building anymore, right?
What was that?
The Supreme Court.
They're going to be in this building right here, the Ralph Carr Judicial Center. Named after former Colorado Governor Ralph Carr, who served during World War II here in Colorado as governor. This story is incredible. I don't have time to give it all justice, but it's incredible. There's a great plaque right outside of the executive chamber downstairs on the first floor, so right where the governor's office is. It's a plaque dedicated to him. And it's just beautifully well written. And I should memorize it so I can just say that. So we have to start heading down. We got some other groups waiting. So my 10 o'clock group, if you guys kind of want to head on in through the doors. And then just watch your head as you step in. Doors are a little low.
Did Colorado receive a Liberty Bell? They have a Liberty Bell?
Yeah, they do have a Liberty Bell. It's just in the city center park. The key to the Liberty Bell is held by the Daughters of the American Revolution, so it doesn't ring. They have to unlock it to use it. And then I'll just make sure.
So once we head down the stairs, pretty much we are on our own now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, if you guys want to start heading down, I'm just going to do a couple laps, make sure I don't miss anyone. But head down, it'll be the door on your left to exit back into the attic. And then from there, you're on your own. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed.
What is down there?
It says on July 4th, 1877, this flag became the official United States flag. A star was added for the admission of Colorado on August 1st, 1876, and was last for 13 years. The vice president presented this flag for
spread out at the feet of the whole.
How to exit the building?
How do you exit?
Yeah.
You gotta go down to the basement.
All the basement.
Yeah.
Thank you.